Good afternoon, all. Is it audible? Okay, thank you. Um, so today we are going to see about static attributes method. So already we have seen normal attributes. We know how to uh, okay. So we know how to define attributes within the class. So we can either define within the constructor using the keyword self. So itself is not actually keyword. You can use any variable, but using that first parameter, we have to create the attribute. Or we can also create it outside the class also. So that is attribute. And as I have already told, when you are creating object, for each object, separate copy will be created. For example, if you have some class called mobile, and in that class you have some two attributes like brand and price. So what will happen means when you are creating object, one object, that m1, that m1 will have separate brand and price, and similarly m2, if you are creating another object m2, that m2 will have separate copy of brand and price. So changing value of one object, that is brand in m1, will not affect the brand in m2 because we have separate copies. So but here in some cases we need to maintain a shared copy or shared attributes among those objects. So in that case we can go for static attributes. So that previously we have seen attributes, right? That attributes can be called as instance attributes. Instance attributes, or we can call it as object attributes. That is, that attributes belongs to object. That is, for each object we will have separate attributes. And in the case of static attributes, so attributes created at class level are called static attributes. That means we no need to link the attribute with any object. So the attribute belongs to the class level only. Even if you are creating multiple objects, you are going to have only one copy of that variable. You are not going to have separate copy. So this is how we have to declare a static attribute. For example, here in this class, inside the class, we have one variable called count. Count equal to 0. So this count variable is called a static attribute. And as usual, we have other attributes like A and B, self.A and self.B. These attributes are called instance attributes. So only when you are creating object for this class, only we have multiple copy of A and B, but there will be only one count. So this is called class level attribute or static attribute. So the static attribute is shared between all the objects of the class in which the static attribute is defined. So as I told, now in this example, I have created two objects and I have initialized the value of A and B with 10 and 20, and for another object it is 30 and 40. So how it will be there means there will be only one copy, count equal to 0, and we have separate copy of A and B for both the objects, but both the objects are can access the same static attribute. So even through object 1, if you are going to access this static variable count, it's going to be the same. So if we are going to modify the count variable, then it will be reflected in both the
objects. So how we are going to access this? Now, usually we will access the instance attributes or methods using object only. Inside the class, we will access it using self. Outside the class, we will access using objects or reference, that reference variable which is pointing to the object. But how? Now there is no relation between object and this class attribute. So how we are going to access that? So we are going to access that using class name. So static attributes can be accessed using class name. Class name dot that particular attribute. So in our previous case, our class name is sample and our attribute name is count. So wherever you have to you want to access this attribute, we have to mention it as sample.count. If we simply, suppose inside the class, if we simply mention it as count without that class name, means that count will be considered as a local variable. It will not be considered as a static attribute. That is, during declaration, we can mention count equal to 0. So within the class, we can mention count equal to 0. Suppose within this init, if I am going to initialize the count as some other number, then in that case, while you are accessing, you have to add the class name also. So here is the example. So here we have one class called mobile, and so here we have the static attribute is discount. So they want to give discount 50%, same discount amount for all the mobiles. So in that case, we can have separate instance variable also. But still, it is if we are going to maintain a separate instance variable, it just we are just wasting the memory, right? Because anyway, they are going to give the discount, same discount for all the mobiles. So it's not going to differ for each and, but the brand and price and all will be different for each and every mobile. But discount they are going to give same. So in this case, they are going to give the same amount of discount for all the mobiles. So we can declare that static variable as discount equal to static discount as static attribute, and they have initialized with some value like 50. So 50% discount they are giving. And inside this purchase method, we have access the discount static attribute. So, but how we have mentioned, it is mobile dot discount. So it's mobile dot discount, that is class name dot discount. So in this case, if you are just mentioning simply discount means, so it will not accept, it will show error, because it will consider that discount as a local variable to the purchase, and it will not consider the discount as class attribute. So it is mandatory to include this class name. So now we have seen about static attribute. So you can also access, so before creating objects itself, you can start accessing the static attribute. We can also access the static attribute using object, but the result will not be proper. So always avoid that, and always use the class name to access the static attribute. That's all. Now, the next concept is static method.
So static method means
this method is going to access only the static variable. So another one is self is not the default parameter. So if we have noticed in all the, I have already told that in all the instance method, self is the default first parameter. You have to mention that. But this is a static method. Static method means already we told there is no relation between object and the static attribute or method. So in that case, self is actually represents the current object. To access the current value, we are just having the self. So here there is no reason for including the self here. We are not going to access any object specific attributes. So here self is not the default parameter. So if you are defining any method within the class without that self parameter, it will be considered as a static method. Okay. Okay. So just a minute, I will just join through my laptop and I can show demo.
Okay, sorry, I'm due to some network problem, I'm not able to connect to my laptop. So I will continue with this mobile itself. Okay, so static method. So here the self is not the default parameter. So you can, as usual, as like static attribute, you can call the static method also using this class name. So syntax of static method is, so in two ways you can actually define the static method. So first one is you have to include before the static method, you have to include at static method, and then you can define the method. So yeah, here you have to know this that we didn't include that self parameter. This discount is actually so here. Okay. So here they have first before defining the static method, we have to include at static method, and then after that we can define the method. So here there is no self parameter, we no need to include that. And also to access the static attribute, we have included only the class name mobile dot discount equal to the discount. So first this discount is actually first discount is actually class name dot discount, so that represents the static attribute, and the next discount is parameter. Next, another method is you can simply define the static method also without that add static method, but here while invoking the method you have to mention the like this. So for the first syntax, while invoking the method we can simply call mobile dot set discount, but for the second method we cannot simply call like mobile dot set discount. We have to call within the bracket, we have to mention that this is a static method, and then within the bracket we have to include mobile dot set discount and the value. And then so here we have the example. So first we have declared a class mobile. So inside that we have double underscore discount equal to 50. So if we are including double underscore before that attribute means then that attribute will become private. So we can declare the static attribute also as a private one. So here it is private. So private means we cannot access it outside the class. So what we have to do? We have to include some setter and getter method to access and to set the particular private variable. So here we have included two static methods. We can also set this static variable using a normal method,
But what will happen for calling the normal method? We need one object. So again, we are after creating one object only, we can update the static attribute. So to avoid that, what we are doing means we are just making the method also static, because that method is going to access static attribute. So I have to access the attribute before creating the object itself. That is, using class name itself, I can access the attribute. So in that case, that method must be static. So that is the reason. So the same method, the same program, we can write like this also. That is, instead of static method, we can simply set discount and get discount method as normal method also. But while calling the method, we need an object. So that's why now we have made this method also static. So we have created two objects, mobile one and set discount. So this is the way you have to call the static method. But suppose if you are not, if you not mention that at static method here, then in that case, so if you didn't mention this at static method here means, then here, while calling the method, so while calling the method, here we have to write static method, and then within the bracket we have to write mobile dot set discount. Static method mobile dot within bracket mobile dot get discount, like that we have to mention. That's all about static method. And then static counter is just one application only. So how this static attributes are all using. So for example, if you are booking an online ticket booking, so for each ticket we will be assigned with one unique number, right? So maybe that ticket ID, to assign the ticket ID, we can make one maintain one static variable. So initially maybe the ticket ID value maybe starts from some 1,000. So after booking each ticket, the ticket ID will get updated and will get to the ticket. So like that, using this, we can use the static attribute as a counter also. So it is used to assign some unique number to each object. So for example, here for each mobile, we are just assigning one ID. So initially, the identifier value starts from 1. So counter equal to 1. So inside the init function, they are initializing all the values. So price and brand are initialized by the user. But self.id, that ID value is automatically initialized from the static attribute. So to the ID, we have assigned only the static attribute mobile.counter. So initially that mobile.counter value will be 1. So after assigning, what we are doing, we are just incrementing that static attribute or shared attribute. So what will happen? That mobile.counter will become 2. So when we are creating the second object, again this init function will execute. But what will happen? Self.id equal to mobile.counter means now the counter value became 2. So the first mobile will be assigned with the ID identifier 1 and the second mobile will be assigned with the ID 2. So that is the use of static, another use of static attribute. So it can be used as a counter also. So okay, so we can just try this. So what is the answer for this one? Okay. I will explain it. So here we have count equal to 0, which is static attribute. And inside the, so while we are creating s equal to sample, constructor will get invoked. So what will happen? A will be assigned with 10 and B will be assigned with 20. And in the third line, we have count equal to 30. So as I already told, if we are just mentioning the variable alone, that variable will be considered as a local variable to that constructor alone. So if init kulla mattumna and the count theriyum. So you don't know that count is the static attribute. So count equal to 30 means so it will just consider that count as a local variable. So the static variable value will not get updated and it remains 0 only. So while we are printing, we will get a value as 10, but count value as 0 only. So we have to print the count value as 30, we have to change the third line. That is inside the constructor, the third line, we have to change it as sample, class name. Sample.count equal to 30. So that's why the answer is B. And next, this one. Okay. And answer is A. So here, inside the init, the sample.count equal to 30. So we have used the class name. So while we are creating object, the count variable will also get updated as 30. And while we are displaying, it is printing the updated value. So the answer is A. And see here one more thing. The third option here, a static method invoked with object. So display is actually static method only, but I have invoked with s dot. S is an object. So we can do that also. It's not an error, but still it's a good practice to always use class name for invoking the static attribute and method. Okay, so instead of this s dot so s dot display will not show any error, but still we can write it as sample dot display, as display is a static method. Okay, so see, I got answers. Yes, 3000. Okay, so it's correct. It's so num is 10. So it's a static method. Add is a static method. So we can call that as example dot add. So 100, 200 will be assigned. So for static method, there is no self parameter. So num1 will be 100 and num2 will be 200. And example dot num means it is 10. So 200 plus 100, 300. 300 into 10. Finally, we will get 3000. Okay, so this is the exercise. So write a Python program to find out if a given classroom is present in the left wing of a university building. So maintain a static list
which store the name of the classrooms in the left wing. So what you have to do means, you can maintain a list. So that list should be a static list. So that means inside the class itself, we can define the list. And then include static method with search for the given classroom in the classroom list. So we have to give one classroom name, and we have to search in the list and print whether it is found or not. So we'll just define the class. So class, maybe we can name it as classroom. Then we have to, so static list only we are going to maintain. So within the class itself, we have to define. So maybe class list equal to, so list we are going to maintain. So within that, we can mention some classroom names. Maybe we'll just keep it as A, comma, B, comma, C. So this is classroom. So this is the static list. And then we have to create one static method. So either we can write at static method, or we can simply write method, and while calling that we have to include the static method. So at static method, the next line we have to define the method. So define method name search class, and then within bracket we no need to mention self. We can just add the parameter, that is the classroom which we have to search. So we can write this class name, and then bracket and so now we have to search. This is the normal process only. Only inside this static method we are going to search. So we can search in the list as for we can X in, can take each and every class on the list, class list. While mentioning here, so now we are going to access the static attribute. We cannot simply mention class list. So we have to add the class name also. So class name is classroom. So classroom dot class list. Then colon. So we are searching each and every class from the class list, and then we are checking whether it is the one we are searching for. So if class name. And then in that case, we have to return found. Otherwise, we have to return the -1. So return, or we can just mark it as, we can maintain one variable found equal to 1. And similarly, we can initialize the variable. Initially, we didn't found the class, so we can just initially we can initialize it as 0. So once we found the class, we can just break. After that, we no need to search. So once we found the class, we can just break. And then finally, we can check it. So this is a normal thing only. We have already done this in previous module itself. The same program, only thing is we are writing inside the class and inside the static method. So found equal to 1. So in that case, we have to write it as print found or return found. Return found. So else return -1. Okay. So now we have written function. We have to call the function. So for calling the function, usually we will create object, but here we are just going to access the static. We are just going to access the static method. So we no need to create object. Instead of that, using the class name itself, we can access. So simply we can write classroom dot search class, and within that we can pass the classroom name. So any classroom name, if it is present. Now we have given C. So if it is, we execute the program, we will get it as found. So as it is returning, we can just call within the print function, or we can get the function and print it, or we can just store the result in a variable and then we can print it. So result equal to, and then finally we can print the result. So this is one way. So another way is the static method. So if we are not going to mention this static method here at static method, and we are simply defining this method means, then in that case, while calling this method, we have to include this keyword static method, then open bracket, close bracket. So like this we have to. So these are the two ways we can access the static method. So that's all about today's class. So any doubts? If you have any doubts, you can ask. So static is just a shared variable. Till now, other attributes, that attributes called instance attributes. That attributes, usually each object will have separate copy. So, but in the case of static attribute, all the objects, if you are creating any number of objects, but only one static attribute is going to be there. So for one class, one static attribute. That's all. One copy of that static attribute. So we are not going to access it with object name, as there is no relation with the object and all. So we are simply accessing it using class name. That's all. Any doubts?
So if you have any doubts, you can ask, or just you can continue with your lab sessions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.